Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance. The only light is from a flickering torch on the wall. Nancy's hands are tied. Her breath comes in shaky gasps. She whispers to herself, eyes darting in the darkness. Oh God, this can't be real. This is not happening. Wake up, Nancy. Wake up. A soft sob breaks the silence. Another girl is tied nearby, barely conscious. A third one lying on the floor beside her, lifeless. Her eyes wide open, staring into nothing. He killed her. He actually killed her, Nancy cried, her voice cracking in fear and horror. Then she heard it. Footsteps echoing down the corridor, heavy, slow, getting closer. No, please, somebody help me, please, Nancy whispered to herself as she struggles to free herself from the rope. She bites her lip to stop from screaming as her efforts proved abortive. Her body shakes uncontrollably. Suddenly, Damien's shadow appeared in the doorway, like a lion stalking his prey. You're still awake, pretty girl. That's good, he said in a voice so cold it sent shivers down Nancy's spine. He then steps closer to Nancy, holding something in his hand. It glints under the light. Why are you doing this? You said you liked me. You said I was special. You are special. That's why you are worth so much. Nancy's mouth drops open in shock as she hears those words from Damien. Her scream catches in her throat. Her lips trembled as she fought back the tears swelling in her eyes. How did it come to this? How did a smile at the supermarket turn into this nightmare? Nancy thought to herself as tears flowed freely down her face. Well, this isn't where her story started. No, it all began 3 months earlier at that supermarket. This is the story of Nancy Adetola, a beauty queen who refused to slow down until it almost cost her everything. This is the beginning. Nancy Adetola was the kind of woman you couldn't help but notice. Heads turned as they always did. Students whispered. Men stared at her, some openly, others with shy glances. Women either admired her beauty or scoffed in envy. She was very beautiful and carried herself with the grace of a queen. Her light skin seemed to glow even without makeup, but Nancy was too much of a perfectionist to leave anything to chance. Every strand of her long, thick black hair was styled into soft waves down her back. Her pink lips were full and carved into the slight, knowing smile of someone who was fully aware of her effect on others. Everything about Nancy was intentional. Every step, every glance, every pose. She had built herself into a flawless image, one she maintained. But perfection came at a price. At home, the house helps walked on eggshells when she was around. Maria, Nancy would yell from the top of the stairs. Did you use the lavender-scented soap for my clothes? I can smell something else. The poor maid would stammer, trying to explain, but Nancy wasn't one to tolerate imperfection. She would insist on the clothes being rewashed immediately, no matter how long it took. Her room had its own sacred rules. Pillows had to be arranged a certain way, smallest on top, medium-sized in the middle, and the largest at the bottom. One mistake, and a tantrum would follow, loud, dramatic, and exhausting. Her mother, a soft-spoken woman named Mrs. Adetola, would sigh often. She'll grow out of it, she would say to her husband, trying to stay hopeful. But Mr. Adetola, a successful businessman, would simply shake his head. Well, she's used to the best, and only the best will satisfy her. At the university, Nancy was a star. She moved with a certain air, unapproachable, exclusive. Her friends understood her moods, her standards, and her pride. They knew how to praise her in the right times and avoid contradicting her. She wasn't cruel, not exactly. She could be sweet and even generous when things went her way. But she had a sharp tongue and a cold attitude when it came to those who didn't meet her standards. Most of her friendships were conditional. If you wore the right brands, you were worthy of sitting beside her. If you didn't, you were invisible. Her standards extended even further when it came to men. Nancy had a strict checklist, and she made sure everyone knew it. He must be tall, dark-skinned, rich, with a car. And not just any car, a Range Rover, a Benz, something that tells me he is successful, she would say with a smirk. Her friends, Amaka and Bimbo, would often giggle during these conversations. "Ah, girl, and your taste," Amaka would say, laughing. "You know me," Nancy would respond with a wink. "I deserve the best." Nancy wasn't wicked. She had simply been raised to believe that a beautiful woman with the right curves shouldn't lack anything, and a man that has money should spend it on beautiful women. But this isn't true, and she was about to learn the hard way. One sunny afternoon, Nancy strolled through the aisles of a high-end supermarket in the city. Her heels clicked softly against the tiled floor as she studied the shelves. Her makeup was flawless, her steps, her dress. She looked like a model. Everything about her screamed money and class. She moved with confidence, pausing occasionally to examine a product before placing it neatly in her basket. Behind her, some shoppers turned to stare, not because she caused a scene, but because her beauty and presence demanded attention. Just then, a young man in a clean polo shirt and jeans approached her. He had a warm, sincere look in his eyes. He looked clean, not badly dressed, but nothing expensive or flashing. He smiled politely. "Hi, sorry to disturb you. I just thought you looked really beautiful and wanted to say hello." Nancy barely gave him a glance. Her eyes went to his hands. There was no car key, no designer watch. He didn't smell of any designer cologne or look confident. She didn't see the sparkle of wealth. She didn't even let him finish. "I'm not interested, please," she said in a rude tone. And without another word, she pushed her cart forward, leaving him standing there awkwardly. She didn't feel bad. In her mind, a man like that had no business approaching someone like her. She had a type, and that didn't include anyone without a car, without designer clothes, without the aura of money. A few minutes later, she was at a checkout when she noticed another man standing by a sleek black car outside the glass doors. He was tall, dark-skinned, and dressed in expensive designer clothes, Gucci shoes, a gold wristwatch that shimmered under the sunlight, and dark shades that gave him an air of mystery. He held his car keys in hand, casually spinning them around his finger. He turned, locking eyes with Nancy. He smiled. Nancy's heart skipped a beat. She was drawn in immediately. He stepped into the store, walking straight toward her like he knew her already. "Hey, beautiful. I saw you from outside. I couldn't live without saying something. What's your name?" The stranger asked him in a cool, deep voice. Nancy smiled back, warmth blooming in her chest. "I'm Nancy," she replied, smiling shyly. "Nancy? Pretty name for a pretty girl. My name is Damien. Are you here alone?" She nodded. Damien looked her up and down appreciatively, clearly impressed. "I love your style. Are you a model? You look like one," he said. Nancy beamed. This was the kind of man she wanted. He fit her criteria perfectly. Tall, dark-skinned, confident, and above all, rich. They exchanged numbers when they got outside the supermarket. Damien offered to drive her home, but she declined. Her heart fluttered as she waved goodbye. Immediately, Nancy got back to the hostel. She called Amaka and Bimbo to her room. "Girls, you won't believe who I met," Nancy said to her friends. She was very excited. "Who again? Another tall, fair, rich car guy?" "Exactly. But this one is different. He's gorgeous, has taste, and his confidence on point." Don't rush, oh. These guys that look too perfect sometimes hide things," Bimbo warned her. "That's true. And if he starts spending like crazy or moving too fast, then you need to run. Men are not smiling these days, oh," Amaka said, supporting Bimbo. Nancy looked at her friends as if they were speaking in a language she didn't understand. "I beg, you guys are just jealous. He's my type of guy. You guys need to see him." "My dear, calm down, no. You just met him today," Amaka said, laughing. "Amaka, you won't understand how I feel," Nancy replied with a dreamy look on her face. Amaka and Bimbo exchanged glances, but said nothing more. That night, Damien called her, and the night after. He sent her money for lunch in the afternoon. He took her to expensive restaurants, brought her flowers, gifted her designer jewelries. Nancy couldn't believe how perfect everything felt. It was all like a dream come true.
But the thing about dreams is that they sometimes disguise nightmares. Damien had no real interest in her heart. He wanted something else, and soon she would find out what that was. The sun was beginning to set that day as Damien's sleek BMW pulled up outside Nancy's hostel gate. Nancy walked out of her hostel looking as beautiful as ever, her hips swaying gently as she walked toward Damien's car. Her long hair was styled in a sleek ponytail, her makeup smooth and elegant. Damien leaned against his car, flashing his perfect white teeth and adjusting his designer sunglasses. "Baby, you look incredible," he said, in that magnetic voice that always made her smile. Nancy smiled, blushing slightly. "You don't look bad yourself," Nancy replied, smiling as if she won a lottery. Damien opened the passenger door like a gentleman, and Nancy slid in, enjoying the luxurious leather seat and the soft music playing in the background. They drove through the city lights. Damien was charming, calm, and smooth. He talked about traveling to Dubai, shopping in Milan, and hinted at having big business deals. Nancy listened, starry-eyed. "I've never met someone like you, Nancy. You're different. You've got class, intelligence, beauty. You deserve the world," Damien said to Nancy, like a man in love. Nancy giggled at his words. "And you might just be the man who gives it to me," she teased him, and they both laughed. It was all moving fast, too fast. Sometimes Nancy would notice how Damien's eyes went cold for a second when she asked questions about his private life. But then he would smile again, and just like that, the doubt would disappear from her mind. Back at the hostel, Amaka tried once again to talk sense into her friend. "Nancy, it's just been a few weeks, and this guy's already spoiling you like you are married. It seems fishy, oh," Amaka said, obviously worried. "Doesn't it feel too good to be true? Real guys don't throw money and gifts like that without wanting something," Bimbo added, trying to make Nancy see reason. But Nancy rolled her eyes. Her mind was already made up. "I beg, you girls don't like seeing someone happy. Damien is not some broke campus boy. He's a real man, a business tycoon with many warehouses in Port Harcourt." "That's not the point. He's moving too fast. You barely know anything about him, where he's from, where he lives, or even his last name," Amaka said firmly, hoping Nancy will understand her point. But Nancy waved her hand dismissively and left the room. She didn't know she was walking straight into a trap. One Saturday evening, Damien called. "Baby, let's take a little drive," he said, his voice low and tempting. "Just me and you, somewhere private." Nancy hesitated, just for a second. "Where exactly?" she asked, smiling to herself. "Babe, it's a surprise. Somewhere peaceful and romantic. You will love it." Nancy smiled. "I love surprises. Pick me up by 6, she said excitedly, almost dancing on her bed. Damien picked her up around 6:30 p.m. that evening. They drove out of town, far from the city's bustle. The roads got narrower, streetlights disappeared. Nancy glanced around, but said nothing. She trusted him, or at least she told herself that she did. "Baby, are we not lost?" she asked Damien, teasing him. Damien laughed. "Relax and enjoy the ride." Soon, the car stopped in front of an uncompleted building, surrounded by bush and silence. Nancy frowned. "Here? There's nothing here."
"Babe, why did we stop here? Is the surprise inside that building? I don't do bushes, oh."
Before she could say more, everything changed. Damien's tone became harsh. "Keep quiet, you spoilt brats, you're annoying." His face hardened. He was no longer smiling like a prince charming. Then, 2 men appeared from behind the building. One of them held a cloth in his hand. Nancy was still trying to recover from the shock of how Damien spoke to her. She didn't notice the men approaching her until they grabbed her forcefully. She screamed and kicked them, but one of the men pressed the cloth against her mouth and everything went dark. Nancy woke up in a dark and cold room with a dim light from the torch on the wall. Her hands were tied, but she wasn't alone. Other girls were in the room with her. They looked dirty, hungry, and weak. They were also tied up. Some cried quietly, others stared blankly. Nancy's heart pounded. Where am I? What's happening? Damien, she said in her mind as she struggled to understand what happened. Then she saw him. Damien walked in with the same smile, only now it looked cruel. You thought life was all Gucci bags, shopping and looking pretty, right? You girls never learn. You were even easier than I thought. Well, enjoy your stay, sweetheart. Nancy shook her head violently, tears streaming down her face. Why? Why are you doing this to me? I thought you loved me. But Damien ignored her. He looked around the room, a wicked smile on his face. 7 girls. 2 are already sold. 5 more to go. Nancy's world shattered. Damien wasn't who he claimed to be. He was part of a criminal trafficking ring, preying on vulnerable young women under the disguise of love and romance. His charm had been a trap, one she walked into, and now she was just another commodity. Over the next day, Nancy and the remaining girl, a quiet girl named Jumoke, watched helplessly as the other 5 girls were taken one by one and never returned. The horror was real. All her rules, her standards, her checklist, none of it mattered now, not when her life was hanging on a thread. But Nancy refused to give up. That night, when the guard stepped out to answer a call, Nancy whispered to Jumoke, "We have to get out. I don't care how." "I've tried. The windows are bad. The door is locked with chains," Jumoke replied, as if she had long given up. But Nancy was determined to find a way out of that hell. Then we wait. The first mistake they make, we run.
The next evening, the opportunity came. The younger of the 2 guards fell asleep, the keys to the door on the floor beside him. Immediately Nancy saw this, she signaled Jumoke. Heart pounding, she crawled slowly, fingers shaking. She grabbed the keys and unlocked Jumoke first, then herself. They tiptoed past the sleeping guard, moving quickly but silently. The front door creaked as they opened it, but they didn't stop. They ran into the forest. Branches scratched their skin, leaves whipped their faces, but they ran, fueled by fear and the will to live. Hours later, exhausted and muddy, they collapsed on the forest floor. Nancy didn't know where they were. But then, a rustling sound. A tall, rugged man with a hunting rifle stepped out. A local hunter. He looked at them in confusion. "Who are you? Why are you here in this deadly forest?" Nancy opened her mouth, but only sobs came out. He helped them up and led them to a small hut nearby. He gave them food and water, and the next morning, he used his old phone to contact the authorities. Nancy's parents came running to the police station when they got the news that Nancy had been found. They held her. Her mother cried, remembering how they searched for her to no avail. Jumoke reunited with her family as well. Damien, he was caught days later. One of the girls he sold had a tracker on her phone and he showed her last location before it went off. The police stormed the building. Damien and his gang were arrested and later sentenced. Nancy was never the same again. She cut her hair short. She stopped wearing makeup for months. She rarely posted online. Her designer bags gathered dust. Instead, she visited Jumoke often and even helped the local hunter set up a small NGO to rescue trafficked girls. She smiled differently now, softly, gently. Her friends noticed. "Girl, you really changed though," Amaka said one evening as they sat in Nancy's room.
I had to. Life changed me. Nancy's story is a chilling reminder of luxury doesn't define worth. Your life, your safety, your voice are worth more than any expensive item. Not everything that glitters is gold. Sometimes a soft warning from a friend is the light that saves you. If this story moved you, share it. You might save someone's life. What did you learn from Nancy's story? Let's talk below.